Okay, I'm not a true crime person. I'm not one of those people. I get it. I get why you'd be there. It's never been my thing. I guess I don't have the patience. I did, though. I will say this myself. I did closely follow, and for some reason, like what crime stories really grab you is a whole nother discussion, I guess. I did closely follow that horrible, unbelievable story about the University of Idaho students that were murdered by that lunatic grad student. That is one, I think it might be one of the few that I have followed closely through the years. So it's not my thing. I get how people can get sucked into that and get into it and find it interesting and fascinating. I understand it. I do. It's just not my thing. That said, I have completely dismissed the drowning deaths of 4, but more than that, specifically and recently, the drowning deaths of 4 young men in Lady Bird Lake as the work of a serial killer. I am still going to maintain, I don't believe that's true. Here comes the but. I don't want to go here. I really, really don't. But I have to admit, I get how some of the parents of these men, I get where they're coming from. I do. It's too weird. And I'm going to require that you read the story. It's now national news. It's now international news. And I got to say, it probably should be. I don't know what to make of it. I'm just telling you, it doesn't add up. It's just really hard to believe. And I say this as someone who has grown up here. I've been in that water countless times. I've done triathlons in that water. God help me. So we got a weird story. It's really, really weird. So I can start to understand, this is my setup, as to how and why people are going there. I know there are people that are online that have got, their own Reddit things going on where something happens, they automatically assume it's some sort of crime thing. I get it. I mean, that's just what some people do. And I get to the cops are saying this is really makes it difficult for us because you people go to the straight rumors. We've never once said there's any hint of crime here. I get where they're coming from, but I'm telling you, man, this is not quite adding up. And if these men, these young men who are not morbidly obese tourists, they're locals, how they keep ending up in that water is something. People have been dying in Town Lake / Lady Bird Lake for a long time. Not this many, and all of them look just like this. That's weird. So I'm not going that they were murdered. I'm not going there. Where I am going is it's really hard to believe they stumbled their way a long way, all of them in their 30s, into the water and couldn't get out. So the story of these deaths in Lady Bird Lake is getting legs. Okay, if you thought, well, this is just goofball Reddit stuff, that's what I thought as of yesterday. Because I don't sleep, at 4:30, I look up, and I know Daily Mail is pretty sensational, but there's the story. There's the story, and I found it the next news site, the next news site, the next news site. So even if you want to say, listen, the police department, they've done all they can to dismiss this, I'm here to tell you they've got a PR problem on their hands. They're really going to have to do a pretty decent job of saying what happened, because the media world is now starting to react, not just react and say, is this the work of a serial killer? That's now out there. The media world starting to react as, wow, what a bizarre series. I mean, it just is bizarre. I mean, you get into it and you can't help but understand where some of the families are coming from, saying, I'm sorry, he stumbled from Stubbs into the water? Wait, what? Yeah. So I don't believe it's a crime yet. I don't. I really don't. But I can lay out why people are ending up there. I mean, I can start to see it. I don't know what to make of this. I think I even said yesterday, I don't know what to make of this. This is just too weird. But when you see their ages and their pictures and the fact of where they lived, it really does get to be bizarre. How you could get that wasted, I guess. So it's really, really hard to believe. I get it. I'm still maintaining this, that they wandered into the lake and drowned. That's really hard to believe. It just is. It's sad every which way. And I don't like pouring gas on the idea that they were murdered. I don't. I really don't like it. But read some of the stories and see their pictures, and you'll come away with this is not adding up very well. Something needs to be clarified, and hopefully it will. Hopefully it will. This is one story of now many. I read to you from the Daily Mail. Fears of a serial killer in Austin. And by the way, I didn't go to the Daily Mail and find this. I found this on another aggregate site listing this story. Fears of a serial killer in Austin after 8th body is pulled from Lady Bird Lake. All right, so I'll just read it to you. Now, I do want to do that. Let me explain to you how bizarre this is. If you were to read this story, I'm not suggesting a crime. I'm just saying this is really, really bizarre. When you look at their pictures, you see these young, seemingly fit young men, okay, that were not near the water. Okay, these, as I said, these are not, I get, even this is tough to believe, but I get that there are enough dumb tourists that get drunk, end up in bad situations. That's been happening for a long time. I get that, and I run down there all the time. And I see people that are homeless, that are laying down. You could see how it ends badly. You could. It's sad, and I've seen plenty of bodies pulled out of there through the years that I've been running. So there are situations and there are storylines that sadly make sense. You look at these guys and where they lived in downtown, it doesn't seem to make sense. It's hard to believe. They can't, even if they ended up in the water, that they can't get out of the water. It's not like there's an undercurrent, okay? I'm not saying everybody can swim, but these young dudes should be able to get out of that water, even wasted. It's not that deep where they went in. I'm just saying. So they're young. At their last sighting, in 4 specifically that one of the families is talking about, at their last sighting, they are at least, as you go down to the end of Rainey Street, not every one of them was on Rainey Street. It's at least 400 feet away. At least. There's a lot of grass and a lot of concrete between you and the end of Rainey Street. Maybe not a bunch of people at 2 a.m., but usually probably some. I got to tell you, usually there's people around. There's condo towers all around there. Even if you walk through them all and you stumble through them all, and you're a 30-year-old young guy who's not morbidly obese, could they pass out? Yeah, I guess they could pass out. We're not talking about a homeless person that rolled into the water. Even if you're wasted and you just make a beeline down Rainey Street, nobody notices you. No video, nobody sees you, nothing. All right, even if that were to happen, and you walk straight into the water right there, you shouldn't drown. You shouldn't. Not 4 of you. And that's where I understand where the family is coming from. I mean, if you tell me none of them could swim, okay, I guess. But right where that water is, I've run there millions of times. You shouldn't just sink straight to the bottom. It's not like you're at the beach. There's no undertow, there's no waves, there's nothing there. You'd be waist deep for at least 20 feet. I'm not, Jeff, you're now making this out to be a murder. I'm just saying how weird this is that these 4 young guys would drown there. That's all. It is really tragic. And if all of them ended up waist deep drowning in water, I guess we're going to have to listen. But the city is now really going to be under pressure to do something about this. If this really is young, drunk men. And by the way, drunk young people in downtown Austin is not new. It's not. I mean, it's full every Thursday through Saturday of thousands of drunk guys, dumb as dirt, out of their minds. Probably many of them can't swim. And last time I remember, they do not end up in that water. They don't. It's just, I mean, people have been getting drunk near the water for as long as I've been here. Just saying, it's really an odd time, an odd circumstance. Okay, so you get my point. At their last sighting, they had to be 400 feet away. In the case of a 40-year-old married father, he was last seen at Stubbs. What's Stubbs from the nearest part of Lady Bird Lake? How far? Half a mile? What do you think, Isaac? A mile?
I mean, it's what, at least like 8 blocks?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's...
okay, I mean...
That's a mile ballparking it, yeah.
Okay.
I've walked from Stubbs to the river.
People are wasted. There's wasted people all over down there. They're everywhere. If you're so wasted you can't even float, he's not passed out on whatever drug. He's walking. You walk a mile to get to that water, you're not passed out. And he is not an unfit person. He's not. This is not a guy curled up in a blanket under a bridge. This is not some tourist from Wisconsin that passed out by the water. This means he walked from Stubbs all the way into the water. Why? I'm just saying that's the kind of stuff that makes this really weird. It's as Isaac said, it's 8 blocks away. Okay. I get it. They were drunk. But there's no rip currents. The water is not that deep, man. I've done triathlons there. So these guys are young enough and seemingly fit enough to get out of that water. They are. I mean, I know at night it'd be scary. I know at night it's, whatever. You might freak out. You can stand up in a lot of those places. You can. It's gross, but you can. So it's not that deep where they were found. They all live in Austin. I think they all live in Austin. All right, so here's the story in the Daily Mail. Again, I sound like I'm buying into it. What I'm buying into is this many is a story. It is. This is a really weird and bizarre issue. And if it really is about... I think you could hear some people at the city council. I think you could hear they're not talking much. I think it's now a mistake. I do. I think you're really going to need to get ahead of this because this thing is getting legs. And if I were the police department or I'm the mayor or I'm the head of the police department, I need to get in front of this. I need to start coming up and saying, no, here's a video. Here's how it happened. And then we got another conversation about, wow, we got to now start to worry about drunk guys ending up in the water. We're going to have to do something about it. If this really is all accidental and it's just tragic, bizarre mistakes, and somebody says, yeah, Ward, people have been getting drunk for a long time, but now it's different for these reasons. I think we need to hear that because right now I can't figure it out. It doesn't add up. All of them don't add up. All right, so it says... Jonathan Honey, 33, Jason John, 30, and 5 other unidentified people have been found dead at the same location over the last year. I don't know if that's entirely true, but it's close. Austin residents fear a serial killer may be on the loose after the 8th body in just 10 months was pulled from a lake in the city. John Christopher Hayes Clark, 30, was the latest person to be found dead in Austin's Lady Bird Lake on Saturday. Earlier this month, 33-year-old Jonathan Honey was found dead on April 1st. Cliff Axtell, 40, was discovered on March 5th, and Jason John, aged 30, was found on February 13th. A further 4 unidentified bodies have been recovered from the lake in the past 10 months. Now, again, if we just go back up a little bit, if you just want to read this, we're not talking about 19-year-old drunks. We're not. Which have been around, that's dirty six too often. And we're not talking about 22-year-old drunks. We're not talking about 70-year-old homeless drunks. These dudes are all the same age. I'm sorry, it kind of sounds the same. It's weird. Terrified residents have set up Facebook groups and taken to TikTok to voice their growing fears that the deaths may be connected. Is that irresponsible? I don't know. I mean, look, here's a picture of the guy. This is not some... Here's a guy with his kids. Super fit. Super fit people don't fall into a lake and drown, I'm telling you. Investigators claimed they did not suspect foul play at this point in the investigation, but with so many bodies found in quick succession, residents remain fearful. I don't know the residents are. I mean, I don't really know. It hadn't been that big of a deal. Most of us laughed it off. I laughed it off as of yesterday until I started reading this and seeing these guys' pictures. And all of a sudden you start to think, wait a minute, these guys are close. They look a lot alike. It's weird. A private Facebook group called Lady Bird Lake Serial Killer with more than 50,000 followers was created when Jason John's body was discovered in February. Investigators have not released details regarding the whereabouts of all the men before their deaths, but have revealed both Jonathan and John were seen on Rainy Streets before their separate disappearances. Rainy Street is, even drunk, 25-minute walk down to the water, you think? Something like that? Maybe not that long. They say here it's 1.8 miles. I don't think that's quite right. Jason John's family believes there's more to the story behind their son's death and think the four men are somehow connected. He was last seen walking home. This is Elsie John, Jason John's mother. Jason was 30. Jonathan Honey was 33. 2 in the morning, Rainy Street. So there were some similarities in the case, she says. Elsie added that she doesn't agree with the initial ruling that no foul play was involved. She fears more men might end up dead. Quote, we definitely don't agree with that. We don't know how many Jasons, how many Martins, how many Jonathans are going to be losing their lives again. This is not acceptable. I mean, I don't know. I don't know what to make of that. I guess somebody would say, oh, it's irresponsible to go this far, but there's no real answers, to be honest with you. I mean, that I think is a problem here. And it's hard to believe. If you just take Rainy Street, you take Stubbs for an example, it's not lacking cameras. It's not. It's not lacking people. It's not lacking cameras, and not even at 2 o'clock in the morning. This is not 2 o'clock in the morning in some desolate area. This is 2 o'clock in the morning where there's probably 10,000 people sitting at food trucks. So you can see why. I don't know what the responsibility of the city is at this point. The mom of one of these guys, and this is a 30-year-old guy, is calling out the city saying you need to come up with more. And you kind of can't blame her. If that, it is hard to accept for the rest of us, and it's not our kid. The fact that there are 4 dudes in a month, all very, very similar in ages, very similar in look, very similar in where they live. That's the thing. So it's got legs. Maybe one day here in the near future, we're going to hear about how all this happened. If in fact it's people stumbling into the water at this point with this many young guys, this connected, you might even have to admit, the city's got a problem on its hands. It's got to figure out something. It's something I never thought about. I never thought about it. And as of yesterday, I made the joke, what are they going to do, build a fence? Yeah. You have to admit, and when you read this story, and when I'm telling you, and I'm not being, I guess I am being alarmist. I don't like it. But when you see their pictures, it just has a different meaning to it. This is not at all, in my lifetime here, this is not at all typically who's being fished out of that water. It's not. One young guy dies every now and then. It's true. It's sad. It's true. It's, that's life and living around the water like we do. But 4 guys like that in a month is off the charts.